What's up guys, it's Michael here. In this video, we're going to talk about outsourcing jobs overseas. So, in now modern day and age, there's a lot of political talk, as you see in both sides of the spectrum, that outsourcing jobs has become one of the main issues. And we're gonna really go dive deep into it in certain parts and be generalized in certain areas. But what really breaks down is a lot of companies and corporations make deals with other countries where when they sign agreements and where countries sign two agreements, they allow their workforce to move from point A to point B. So of course in business sense, it would be better optionized when you can choose a place that costs less, for example, paying your workers a lot less and get the same benefits. Or for example, you hire an employee from another country that could work remotely and you can pay them a lot less because their standard of living is completely different. So I made a video previously, which you guys should watch, and also click the subscribe button down below, is where that inflation actually plays a really big role in how currency's worth and versus the dollar plays a huge role in where places and products become manufactured. So what's interesting is when you look at China, China itself is known as a manufacturing hub. And the reason why is, the first thing you have to know is, why is their currency so weak? Because of labor. Their labor is really cheap. If you have a weak currency, then you can hire them for a lot lower price and get better laborers. What are better in quality? Sometimes yes. But do you get them for very cheap? That's the goal. And it improves their standard of living. So, for example, if you hire someone from America at minimum wage, certain states, between other states, is between $15 an hour and minimum wage is probably around like $7 to $8 an hour in other states, depending on the state. But if you hire in places like, say, for example, Mexico, the Mexican pesos, and you versus the dollar. So this is where the interesting part, the juicy part comes in. Like, for example, clicking the subscribe button down below and a like button. If you don't, it's going to get really cold during winter for the EU. But in that case, you look at it, why did people from Mexico go over to California to work? So why did a lot of people try to immigrate to California or immigrate any other place in the United States? It's because their currency value and their standard of living is super high in America, and wherever they live in is really poor. So if they work in America, like for example, for people in Tijuana, they live there and they work in San Diego, California, work there for one day and come back. So you think about it. If you can Google their currency, Mexican pesos versus the dollar, they work 1 hour there and get somewhere close to like minimum wage. If you get something close to like minimum wage and you bring that back, it's basically them working like probably a whole day where they can do that in 1 hour. That is basically the steal. And for example, Philippine pesos is like what? I think it's like 60 times of the American dollar, 60 times worse. So 1 American dollar equals to almost something like 60 something pesos. So you go from, like, say you hire someone from the Philippines and you have them do whatever business, goods, or service for you, and you basically get a huge value for an amount of money. And there's another good example is quite a lot of people in America, for example, a lot of different other YouTubers besides this channel, basically make all their money here. When they make their money here, they move to another country, like for example, Spain or Portugal. Why did it go over there? Because everything there is cheaper. Their standard of living is pretty good, is pretty high, but their currency value is not as strong as America. So in my previous video, how I mentioned Japan's currency, their yen, used to be almost on par with America and suddenly dipped back down, and the economy's back, due to stagflation, is not really growing. That's actually really bad. It's actually going down because not enough people are consuming, not people inventing new ideas. But when the yen weakens, you have a lot of benefits too. And the benefits are mainly hitting towards political spectrum for businesses because you have a weaker currency and you have a lot of smart population with high IQ, a lot of big labor force, and are willing to have specific type of jobs. A lot of businesses and companies will think about it. They have many places to choose from. So for example, instead of right now with America and China being really hostile intentions, they can, let's say, move to Japan because Japan's currency is weaker. If it's weaker, you can maybe get a better dollar for value. If that's the case, then it's, benefits for America and Japan. Then all the businesses will move over there and you have a better workforce and you have better trade agreements and relationships. Now, why houses go back to how America do with jobs and businesses? Like, for example, their previous president, Donald Trump, saying that they're trying to bring the labor force back into America. And most people, including myself, say that won't happen. And the reason why is, why would they hire someone who has similar skills to what most Americans have when they can hire them for, let's say, like 10 to 20 times cheaper, maybe sometimes 60 times cheaper? If they can get the value out of that, they would go over there instead. And they bring the products back to here. So that is the problem here. It's just the standard of living here is so high. When the standard of living is really high and currency is really strong, it's really hard to find cheap labor. So that's why usually specialized tasks or high-end jobs is what goes on for areas of higher and more expensive standard of living and currency. And you look at Europe's case. Why did some businesses go to Europe, open their headquarters there? Because it's cheaper there to open there than America. That is what it is. As for if you want to grow businesses and jobs, like for example, the labor shortage, in my previous video, I said there is a lot of jobs out there. It's just whether or not people want to take it. For example, farming areas. Most people don't want to take it. So what they do to hire immigrants instead, because immigrants do not have the same labor protection laws compared to people who have citizenship. So when you look at it at the end, it's basically really close to impossible to fix this solution, because when you have trade agreements, if you break them, then there's a lot of other possibilities could be happening. For example, it's getting winter. Getting really cold. You should click the subscribe button down below. But now the serious case is that labor shortages and having a workforce being driven out the country, it's a trade. When you have a global economy and you need a workforce and you want a better workforce and you want a place to produce goods for cheap, because a business is competing against other businesses. When the other businesses are hiring people from like China or like India, versus toy makers hiring people from America, it's very hard to compete against price unless they have something like dominance in quality or they have dominance in basically marketing. It's very hard to compete for new companies to come in. That's why, like for example, Apple doesn't have its main core iPhones made here. Most of the components are made from out of the country, overseas, because it's cheaper. If they made it all in America, then the iPhones could be way more than the current price. Instead of like $1,000, $2,000, might be $3,000 to $4,000. At the end, people can say all they want, but are they willing to pay that price? And the answer most of the time is no. They're not willing to pay the absorbent amount of price for the same product. So it is what it is for labor shortage. And for outsourcing jobs, low-end jobs are always going to go to the place has a weaker currency, a place who has an abundant labor supply pool that doesn't really need much education, and a place with a higher currency, strong currency, and higher standard of living. That would be the more high-end jobs will locate around there more often. So low-end jobs, the basic principle is low-end jobs go to cheaper countries and high-end jobs stay in more expensive countries. If you pay attention to that and you look at the media and look at multiple sources, you can actually find out what's going on. That's what I have for this video. Please click the like button down below and subscribe button. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.